Okay, imagine a world without, I don't know, Dexter's Lab or the Powerpuff Girls. It's kind of hard to picture.
It really is.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into something a bit concerning, the potential fading out of Cartoon Network.
Yeah, we're looking at a video transcript from Clownfish TV, and they're breaking down a Bloomberg report.
And it paints a, well, pretty sobering picture, especially if you grew up watching cartoons on Saturday mornings or, if you have kids now.
Absolutely. But our goal here isn't just about nostalgia, right? It's about understanding the bigger story.
Exactly.
Like, what does this whole Cartoon Network situation maybe tell us about the huge shifts happening in kids' media, how kids watch things, what the big companies are doing?
And what should you, maybe listening to this, what should you really be paying attention to in this changing landscape?
That's the core question, I think.
Yeah. So we're going to dig into that really alarming drop in Cartoon Network's revenue, the changes, which seem pretty clear, in Warner Brothers' Discovery strategy.
Yeah, their content strategy.
And how they're surprisingly struggling, it seems, to get kids watching on Mac, their own streaming service.
Which is key.
And, what all this means for the actual creators, the animators, and, well, for our kids' viewing habits, too.
Okay, so that Bloomberg report, let's start there with those eye-opening financial numbers.
Right.
So the main claim is this big retreat from streaming kids programming.
Okay.
And the numbers, well, they really back this up. Cartoon Network and Adult Swim, their combined annual ad revenue, it's dropped from, get this, $668.3 million back in 2014.
Wow, okay.
Down to just $133.7 million in 2024.
That's an 80% drop. That's enormous.
That's 80% plummet. That's not just like a bad year. That's fundamental.
Right. It suggests something huge has changed in how advertisers value maybe linear kids' TV versus all the digital stuff out there now.
Exactly. And it's not just on paper either.
No, not at all. We're seeing physical signs like Cartoon Network actually vacating their longtime studio. That feels significant, like a real symbol.
It really does. Plus, you mentioned they've shut down some websites.
Yeah, and it feels like any new animation, if it happens, it's probably heading straight to HBO Max. Well, Max now.
Right, just Max. And that Bloomberg quote, it really nails it, I think.
Which one was that?
The irreverent animation factory, once cranked out, hits talent and profit. But with David Zaslav's retreat from streaming kids programming, the future of the network is in question.
It directly links that high-level strategy, Zaslav's strategy, with the potential, end of an era for something so many people grew up with.
Yeah, it's a stark connection. And it definitely feels like the new leadership at Warner Brothers Discovery, they don't see animation the same way, maybe.
It certainly seems that way. I mean, they're even licensing out Cartoon Network's own shows.
Right, to competitors like Hulu.
Exactly. It's like they know the shows have value, but maybe Cartoon Network itself isn't the priority platform anymore.
Well, if you look at the broader strategy, it seems like they're leaning heavily on established IP, the stuff that feels safer. Yeah.
Like Scooby-Doo. Always another Scooby-Doo.
Precisely. The thinking is probably, parents recognize it. It's easier to market globally.
Which might mean less risk-taking on brand new original ideas.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. And maybe that explains why some projects we heard about, like, did they have an adult Flintstones thing?
Oh, yeah, and that live-action Powerpuff Girls show that just sort of vanished.
Right. It hints they're shying away from those maybe more experimental things and sticking to stuff with a more predictable payoff.
But here's the kicker. Their big push to get kids onto Mac, it's apparently not working so well.
Yeah, that data from Precise TV is pretty telling. Only 13%. 13 of kids aged 10 to 12 recently watched anything on Max.
13%? Wow. How does that compare?
Well, you stack it up against Hulu, that's 32%.
Yeah.
Disney Plus, 57%.
Okay.
And Netflix is way up front at 70%.
72. So Max is really lagging behind with that age group.
Seriously lagging? Is it just that kids can't find the shows? Or maybe the content itself just isn't clicking compared to the others?
And for the little ones, the preschoolers, it's even worse, right?
Apparently, yeah. Dead last was the term used, which probably explains a lot about why Sesame Street wasn't renewed there.
You can't really argue with those numbers.
No. And meanwhile, we all kind of know, even if Precise TV didn't measure it, that YouTube and TikTok are just massive for these kids.
Huge ×6, yeah.
So it really makes you think. The old cable model is fading, sure, but just like sticking shows on a streaming service doesn't automatically mean kids will watch.
It does if the platform isn't really seen as a kid's destination.
Exactly. And this whole shift, the strategy, the viewership numbers, it has a real impact, doesn't it, on the shows, on the creators?
Yeah, the report suggests even the other big players, Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, even Netflix, they're apparently greenlighting fewer new animated shows, too.
Seems like it. And the theory floating around is that there's intense pressure now for shows to have that built-in long-term merchandise potential.
The SpongeBob effect.
Kind of, yeah. That SpongeBob blueprint, if it doesn't scream sellable toys right away,
yeah,
it's a harder sell internally.
Which sounds pretty grim for creativity. And it leads to something really worrying. The report mentioned animators are apparently terrified.
Yeah, about the job market just shrinking. It's a really tough time for that whole creative community facing so much.
And then there's those stories about Cartoon Network shows just disappearing off Max.
Right, and off digital stores, too. And the creators often find out. Well, they don't. They get blindsided.
Like the Infinity Train creator example. That's right.
It really is. That lack of communication, it feels disrespectful to the talent, you know? Makes you wonder how much they value the creative side.
And there was that really sad anecdote about animators who used to be successful now, basically.
Begging for change online. Yeah, that really underscores the human cost here. It's not just about corporate decisions, people's lives and careers.
Absolutely. And underneath all of this, of course, is that massive shift we all know about people ditching cable for streaming.
For sure. That's been happening for ages, and it's clearly hitting linear channels like Cartoon Network hard.
But it's not just where kids watch, is it? It's also about what they or maybe their parents actually want to watch.
That's a really interesting point in the discussion, this idea that some parents actually prefer older shows.
Like Bear in the Big Blue House or classic Sesame Street.
Yeah, exactly, because they're like slower, calmer, especially compared to some of the super fast-paced stuff now, like Cocomelon.
Which suggests maybe a disconnect between what the companies are pushing and what some parents actually want for their kids.
It could be. It highlights that tension, maybe, between grabbing attention quickly and offering something more, I don't know, educational or soothing.
And there was also that point about Sesame Street itself changing.
Right, the perception anyway, that it shifted from pure edutainment towards more merchandising focus. The Elmo effect called it.
And some even feeling it got a bit political.
Yeah, becoming a mouthpiece for politicians was the phrase used by some critics. And those kinds of shifts, real or perceived, can definitely turn off some parents who remember it differently.
Okay, so Clownfish TV, whose analysis we've been looking at, they've been saying this was coming for a while, right?
Yeah, they've been tracking the decline, and you can imagine they feel kind of vindicated now.
There was that story about the Billy and Mandy showrunner, too.
Oh, right, yeah. He apparently got backlash from fans just for saying Clownfish TV had some valid points about the network's direction.
Wow. That really shows how passionate people are about Cartoon Network, doesn't it?
Absolutely. There's a deep emotional connection there. And maybe some resistance to accepting that things might be changing so drastically for something so, formative.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The key takeaways seem to be a really big drop in money for Cartoon Network.
A huge financial downturn, yeah.
A definite strategic shift at Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yeah.
Seemingly away from prioritizing animation like they used to.
Right, a pivot.
A real struggle to get kids, especially, onto their main streaming platform, Max.
Failure to capture young audiences there.
And some pretty worrying impacts on the creators, the animators.
Definitely negative consequences for the talent.
Exactly. So this kind of leaves us with a big question maybe for you listening.
Yeah, what does it actually mean if a giant, Cartoon Network weakens for the future of storytelling, for kids, for creativity, for the whole media world our children are growing up in?
Is it just, the way things go, technology changes, habits change, or is something really valuable getting lost here?
It's worth thinking about, I think.
Yeah.
Beyond just this one network, what are the wider implications for the kinds of stories and shows kids will have access to?
Definitely something to mull over. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Yeah, hopefully this gave you a clearer picture of all the complex things happening right now in animation and kids media.